Before we get into it, let me ask you something. How many of you could tell me the cost of one university subject? What about the cost of a full year of study? Have I stumped you? You're not alone. For most of us, going to university is the biggest self-investment we'll ever make, and most of us have no idea how much it costs. Imagine getting a loan for a new car and having no idea of the price of the car. How are you supposed to know if you're getting a good deal? Or even more importantly, how are you supposed to tell if you're getting screwed? Well, unfortunately, when it comes to university fees, this sort of thing happens all the time. Now I know, there's bound to be someone out there who knows the answers to the questions I posed at the beginning of the video. And if that's you, good on you. But the reality is, for almost all Australian students, including me for the first 2 years of my degree, we have no idea how much study is actually going to cost us. And this has led to many students paying more than 3 times the cost for the same education that you can get at another provider. So, what can we do to avoid getting screwed? Well, I'm sure you'll be relieved to know that everyone can use the strategies I'm going to outline in this video, regardless of whether you've already started the study or not. But very quickly, if any of you are enjoying the informative, free content that Majella and I produce here, we would really appreciate it if you went down and gently tapped that subscribe button. And remember, you can always unsubscribe later on if you want to. To get to the bottom of this, we need to understand how the system works on a bigger level. As some of you may know, many degrees have a difference in fees when it comes to domestic versus international students. But why is this? Well, at most unis in Australia, domestic students have access to what's called Commonwealth Supported Places, or CSPs for short. And basically, CSPs are where the Australian government pay in full a large portion of the tuition fees that go towards getting an education in Australia. So as a quick example, and just bear in mind that these numbers are in no way accurate, they're just there to demonstrate how the process works. Let's assume that the degree you're interested in is going to cost $30,000 a year, while an international student would have to pay the full $30,000. If a CSP is available and you're eligible, you would only have to pay $10,000 of the total $30,000. And to make things even better, if you're eligible, you'll then have the option to put the remaining $10,000 that you have to pay onto a HECS-Help loan, meaning that there's nothing you need to pay upfront. If any of you guys want more information on how HECS-Help works, who's eligible, what is the downfalls of them, I've made a few videos about HECS-Help specifically, so make sure to go and watch those after this video. But without even considering HECS-Help, CSP sounds pretty good. To be honest, it seems like quite the charitable act on part of the government, right? But believe it or not, it's actually in the government's best interest to offer this support to its residents. Just imagine for a moment that this support didn't exist and your average 3-year course cost $100,000. Way fewer people would be able to afford to study. But with the support, we're much more likely to take on this study, more likely to be better educated, to earn more, and to pay more taxes, which is ultimately what the government wants. Now, it's important to note that if a uni offers CSPs for a particular degree, then the cost per subject should be exactly the same, regardless of the university that you attend. So please don't be like me and just assume that one university costs more because it has a better reputation or it's located in a particular city. However, there is one situation where the costs do differ, and that's in area of study. Take a look at this website. It's run by the Australian government and it's called Study Assist. If we go to the student contribution amount section, we can see exactly how much a full-time year of CSP study will cost after the government has made their contribution. So if we were to study a nursing degree, you can see there that a full year of nursing subjects would cost only $4,124. The rest is paid entirely by the government. If we were to study a full year of dentistry, on the other hand, the government doesn't cover quite as much, and so the amount that we have to pay as the student is actually $11,800 per year. Now, some of you may be thinking, why do the costs vary? And in my opinion, the simplest way to understand this is to think about the entity that created the system in the first place. The reason the Australian government covers so much of our tuition fees is to incentivize us to study. So wouldn't it be reasonable to assume that if the government identified that we didn't have enough nurses in the country, that they would lower the amount the student has to pay, upping the amount they put towards our tuition fees to try and incentivize more people to go into that area of study? And wouldn't it also make sense that if the government identified that we had too many lawyers, that they would lower the amount they contribute towards law degrees, upping the amount that we have to pay and ultimately de-incentivizing us from studying that area? Now I know, I've just gone through a lot of information and some of you may be a little bit confused. You still may be thinking, what does this have to do with universities overcharging us? Well, why don't I ask you? Now that you know what a domestic student should pay per year, maybe have a look at your HECS debt, or if you're paying upfront, have a look at the bills you got from the university and add it up. Does it make sense? What if I told you many domestic students are paying multiple times the figures you see on that website? Let me explain how. Starting off with the more mild cases, as you may remember, throughout this video, when I've referenced the cost being the same at different universities, I've always mentioned per subject. And that's a very important distinction because the way CSP works is the costs associated with each area of study shown on the Study Assist website apply on a subject by subject basis. So what that means is if we have a look at a nursing degree, for example, while the majority of the subjects that make up that degree are nursing specific, there may be some outside of nursing only subjects. Perhaps you've got a biology subject that technically falls out of nursing as well. Then those individual subjects won't be charged at the nursing rate. They'll be charged at whatever other area of study they fall into. You can get further proof of this by going onto any university's website, looking at a particular degree, going to the fees section, double checking that they've got CSP, but look at the number that they denote. Is it different from what the Study Assist website says? Most likely. And that's because there's some number of subjects part of the course structure that technically fall outside of that one area of interest. Now, with all that being said, if there's a particular degree that you need to do in order to get to the career that you want, and there are subjects built into that course structure that you have to do that are more expensive, there really isn't much you can do about that. However, where you do have some control, where you can be a little bit smart, a little bit proactive, and if you want to, save money on fees is with the elective subjects. Because many universities will have a portion of the course structure that you have complete control over what you select. So if you wanted to lower the cost of your university course, then rather than choosing subjects in business or law or something like that, you could pick subjects that fall into psychology or nursing or one of those areas that have cheaper CSP fees, and that would overall lower the cost of the degree. Now, the next way many students are overcharged for their education is when they go to a private university. Now, when it comes to private universities, there isn't some general judgment that you can make of the entire group. There are some of them that do actually have Commonwealth supported places, which means, based on what we've already discussed, the cost per subject for the area of interest that that subject is in is going to be the exact same as a public university. So there's no problems there. And outside of that, there are also some private universities that may not offer Commonwealth supported places, but their private fees are comparable, sometimes cheaper for certain courses that I've seen. So it's very important before you make any general judgment about a private university that you may be looking into to double check what the course costs actually are. For the ones that don't offer CSP and the fees are more, then you're going to want to really consider, are the benefits that this private institution offer me for the additional cost going to be worth it? Is going to this institution and paying $50,000 more over the course of my degree going to be a good decision when I could go to a public university and get a similar course or the same course for much cheaper? And for the third and final way mentioned in this video that universities are overcharging you, we've got pathways that don't offer Commonwealth supported places. Now, I just want to preface that this particular way of overcharging students hits close to home for me, as I had to take a pathway in order to get to my dream degree. And so whenever I see institutions charging multiple times the cost of a particular pathway, especially when it's offered and the exact same capacity at another uni for a third of the price, it really grinds my gears, because these students are students who need that extra assistance. And in a lot of cases, they're really struggling emotionally. They may be embarrassed that they weren't able to get straight in, and they'll take anything they can get. So when a university comes to them and says, oh, we've got this great pathway, all you need to do is X, Y, Z, but they don't immediately outline, and it's not immediately obvious that they're going to charge you 3 times the amount for this particular course, it's not exactly a moral thing in my eyes. And I think the best way to combat it is to get the information out there. Now, I really hate to name names, and I don't want this particular factor to necessarily detract from what this university has to offer in other areas, but this pathway is honestly shocking compared to what other universities are willing to offer for much, much cheaper. So the pathway in question, we're looking at UTS's college, where they offer diploma programs, which aside from the fee are actually really awesome programs. And a lot of other institutions have taken up this model. And I personally did this as a pathway and thought it was absolutely amazing. I didn't go to UTS, but the pathway itself, the structure is awesome. The problem for this course is, as you can probably tell, there's no Commonwealth supported places. And so the fee for this is $34,000 for 1 year. 1 year alone, it's going to cost you $34,000. And you know, when you're looking at something like nursing, it's going to be closer to $14,000 for the full 3 years. Now, obviously, if this was a unique pathway that only UTS offered and there was this additional cost for it, then at least it would be something to consider. It's unique, it's offered by UTS, it has unique characteristics, and then you can consider whether paying $34,000 for just 1 year is worth it. But the real problem with something like this is that the exact same thing can be offered at another institution. Macquarie University, for example, offer the Diploma of Engineering structured in the exact same way that is Commonwealth supported. So rather than paying $34,000 for 1 year, you would only have to pay $8,301, assuming all the subjects are in the engineering area, but a dramatic difference in the cost purely because you go to one university over another. Now, in my eyes, there really is no way to justify that. Even if you thought, well, engineering is better for me to graduate with, so if I wanted my Bachelor of Engineering from UTS, then maybe I have to do the diploma. But that's not the case at all. You could do the pathway program at another university and then transfer and graduate with the Bachelor from UTS if that's really what you wanted to do. So I really hope that you found it helpful. If there are any questions, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one.